Julia stood at the edge of the old wooden pier, her straw hat tilted just enough to let the late afternoon sun kiss her cheekbones. The ocean stretched endlessly before her, shimmering like a promise she hadn't quite learned how to believe in yet. A soft breeze tugged at the ribbon of her hat, as if urging her forward into something unknown, something bigger than everything she had left behind. The best is yet to come, she whispered to herself, the words unfamiliar but hopeful on her tongue. Not long ago, those words would have felt like a lie. Julia had always been the kind of person who loved deeply and loudly. She believed in grand gestures, in handwritten letters, in the kind of love that made your heart race even in silence. But life, as it often does, had tested her. It had handed her confusion when she expected clarity, distance when she craved closeness, and silence where there should have been laughter. Yet here she was. Still standing, still dreaming, still believing, somehow. The pier creaked beneath her sandals as she took a few slow steps forward. Each step felt symbolic, like she was walking away from a version of herself she had outgrown. The girl who waited for approval, the girl who doubted her own worth, the girl who stayed too long in places that felt like cages disguised as comfort. I'm not her anymore, she said softly, as if the ocean needed to hear it too. Behind her, the small coastal town buzzed with life. Laughter drifted from nearby cafes. The clinking of glasses carried on the wind. Somewhere, a musician strummed a guitar, the melody imperfect but full of soul. It was the kind of place where stories began or ended, depending on how brave you were. Julia had chosen to begin again. It hadn't been easy. Reinvention never is. There were nights she had cried herself to sleep, replaying conversations in her mind like broken records. Nights when the silence felt louder than any argument. Nights when she wondered if she had made the right choice, to leave, to let go, to start over. But then there were mornings. Mornings like this one. She had woken up early, before the town stirred, before the world demanded anything from her. The sky had been painted in soft shades of pink and gold, and for a moment, everything felt still, peaceful, possible. She had looked at her reflection in the small mirror above the sink and barely recognized the woman staring back at her. Not because she looked different, but because she felt different. Stronger. Lighter. Free. And now, standing here with the ocean stretching infinitely before her, she felt it again, that quiet, steady certainty growing inside her chest. Maybe she didn't have all the answers. Maybe she didn't know exactly where she was going. But she knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going backward. A gull cried overhead, snapping her back to the present. Julia smiled, adjusting her hat as she turned slightly, leaning against the weathered railing. Her fingers traced the grooves in the wood, worn smooth by years of passing hands and passing stories. How many people stood here before me? She wondered aloud. How many had come searching for something? Closure. Hope. A fresh start. She liked to think the pier held pieces of all of them, their dreams woven into its very structure, their fears carried away by the tide. Guess I'm leaving a piece of myself here too, she murmured. But not the broken pieces. Only the ones that had learned how to heal. A sudden buzz from her phone interrupted the moment. She hesitated before reaching into her bag, her heart doing that familiar little flutter, the one that used to mean anticipation, but sometimes meant anxiety too. Old habits. Old feelings. She took a breath before checking the screen. A message. For a split second, she considered ignoring it. Protecting her peace had become something sacred to her, something she wasn't willing to compromise easily anymore. But curiosity won. It always did. She opened the message slowly, her eyes scanning the words. Hey. I've been thinking about you. I miss you. Can we talk? Julia stared at the screen, her expression unreadable. There it was. The past, knocking gently like it hadn't already slammed the door once before. She could almost hear the echo of old conversations, the promises, the apologies, the "this time will be different" speeches that had once held so much weight. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. For a moment, time seemed to stretch. She thought about the girl she used to be, the one who would have replied instantly, heart racing, hope reigniting like a flame she couldn't control. But she wasn't that girl anymore. Not entirely. She glanced up at the ocean again, letting its vastness ground her. The waves didn't rush, they didn't chase, they moved with quiet confidence, knowing exactly where they belonged. I want that, she thought. Not chaos. Not uncertainty. But peace. She looked back at her phone. Then, slowly, she locked the screen and slipped it back into her bag. No reply. Not out of anger. Not out of bitterness. But out of clarity. Some chapters are meant to stay closed, she said quietly. And for the first time, it didn't hurt to admit that. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting everything in a warm, golden glow. Julia took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the salty air, letting it settle something deep within her. She felt proud. Not because she had everything figured out, but because she had finally chosen herself. And that, she was learning, was the hardest choice of all. A voice called out from behind her. Hey, are you coming or what? Julia turned, blinking as she spotted a small group of people waving at her from the shore. New friends, people she had met only days ago, but who already felt like sunlight in human form. They were laughing, carefree, alive in a way that felt contagious. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she smiled. A real one. I'm coming, she called back. She took one last look at the ocean, her heart steady, her mind clear. The best is yet to come, she said again, this time with conviction. And she believed it. Not because life would suddenly become perfect. Not because there would be no more heartbreak or uncertainty. But because she had changed. Because she had learned. Because she had grown. And wherever she went next, she would carry that growth with her. Julia turned away from the pier and began walking toward the shore, toward laughter, toward connection, toward whatever came next. Her steps were lighter now. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just certain. The breeze followed her, playful and warm, as if the world itself was whispering in agreement. Yes. The best was still ahead. And this time, she was ready for it.